Hey, Bourbon family. Welcome back to Whiskey Phoenix, where smooth is optional and fire is mandatory. I said I would be back today, starting my top 10 of 2025 countdown. And what I'm going to start with are what I consider the honorable mentions. I just kind of feel like why they didn't make it into my top 10, they definitely, well, I definitely want to highlight them as some that I really enjoyed, with this being my, getting close to being the end of my first complete year on my bourbon journey. So without further ado, let's get into the honorable mentions. I've got 5 for you. So coming in at number 5 of the honorable mentions is Pursuit United's Twice Toasted. Now you'll see me looking up a little bit because I've got like my notes and my spreadsheet right behind where my camera is at. This is a straight bourbon whiskey coming in at 108 proof. Now the way I got to try this one was a friend of mine in my local bourbon community, Jack, who also happens to be an ambassador for Pursuit Spirits like I am, gave me a sample of pretty much everything in their lineup. So for me, the Pursuit United Twice Toasted, I got on the nose, I got a lot of dark chocolates. I don't know, it's just syrupy smelling and some orange rind or orange zest. On the palate, you kind of get like this, it's creamy. You get some chocolate along with some cherries and just a slight hint of spice. The finish for me came in long, followed by some brown sugar, some caramel, toffee, and oak. Honorable mention number 4 is again from my people at Pursuit Spirits. This is Pursuit United's Triple Mash Rye. Now I did do a review on this back in, I want to say this one was way back in like September when I started doing this, and didn't realize I was gonna take off the way that it did, but I love you guys so much for it. This is their straight rye bourbon. The reason why it's considered a triple mash rye is they do use 3 different mash bills in this. So hence triple mash rye. It is bottled at 108 proof. I actually own this bottle. I picked it up during my Louisville trip when I went to Pursuit Spirits. For me, the thing that always will stick out for me right away without even having to look at my notes is I'll never forget just being like blown away by the spearmint that I got that pretty much, started it off on the nose for me. You get a little bit of rye spice, some baking spice as well for me on the nose. On the palate, the baking spice continues. That that spearmint is also on the palate, followed by, I want to say it's that, rye spice and that pepperiness that you can get from a rye spice, kind of like a black pepper. And then there's just an ever so slight hint of caramel for me as well. On the palate, the rye spice kind of sticks with you where that's concerned. You can feel it like on the side of your tongues. I get a little bit of brown sugar, and I actually get a little bit of citrus on the finish as well. And that spearmint kind of wants to stay with you even on the finish. So it's just kind of all the way through. Number 3 in my honorable mentions of 2025 is Bardstown Fusion Series. This is their Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, bottled at 97.9 proof. I can remember trying this one. I first tried it at Bourbon's Kitchen in Middletown. And after I tried it and fell in love with it, I immediately went on the hunt for it and was lucky enough to find it. This one, for me, on the nose, it was a little more, there was a lot going on there. I got caramels, I got plum, I've got a hint of chocolate followed by some oak and a little bit of pepper as well on the nose. That all gave way to the caramel and chocolate just coming with you onto your palate. The slight spice stayed as well. There was a slight spice. These notes were taken way back at the beginning of the year before I really started being able to distinguish things. So I just have to go with my, upfront and honest notes that I took back when I tried it. And then on the palate, you also get a hint of fruit. Again, you can tell by my descriptions that this was an earlier in the year before my palate, I think, started growing and maturing as we went along. The savory on this Bardstown Fusion series was savory. I do remember that. There was chocolate, caramel, and even a slight hint of almond for me. Coming in at number 2 on the honorable mention list is Whiskey Weather's very own pick from Green River. It was a single barrel pick of their Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey. This one was bottled at fairly high proof point. It came in at 128.3. On the nose, I got orange zest with some vanilla, slightly sweet on the nose, and even some cinnamon. On the palate, it went into it was slightly spicy, a little bit hot, just because of that 128 proof point, which kind of shocked me. I didn't expect it to be so spicy and hot at 128, but that kind of gives way to, the vanilla followed me onto the palate. I ended up getting some caramel. It was, peppery as well. In that orange zest on the nose, there was also a hint of orange on the palate. The finish for me was warm and lingering. That spice just kind of continues on into the finish. You get some oak from the finish, and a hint of honey came in on the finish for me, and then some vanilla. And last, but certainly not least, and I know you all might be shocked that this one actually did not make it into my top 10, but coming in at honorable mention number 1 is the Jack Daniel's 12 year. Now, I did not own this bottle. I was fortunate enough to try the 10 and 12 year at Back Porch Saloon in Westchester, Ohio, here where I live. We all know it's a Tennessee straight whiskey, and I can understand why so much hype was made on this. I mean, it is definitely a fantastic whiskey that Jack Daniel's put out with their 12 year. On the nose, I got butterscotch. It was sweet with cherries and even kind of sugary on the nose. That gave way to a richness with cinnamon on the palate, followed by some, I don't know, dark fruit, berries. I don't know if it's blueberry or raspberry. And then even some molasses. The finish on it, for to be 107 proof, was very smooth, and definitely those berries that I got on the palate, on the finish, it started tasting like plum and maybe some raspberries or blueberry, and there's just this little bit of sweet oak as well where that's concerned. So I have a feeling I may get a little bit of crap for keeping the Jack Daniel's 12 year out of my own personal 2025 list, but it did make number 1 on my honorable mentions. I'm sure it may end up on a lot of other people's and into other people's top 10s for 2025, but I just have to be honest with myself, looking back over the notes that I took throughout all the year, and really go with it. I really wanted to try and keep my top 10 to bottles that I've owned. I unfortunately, full disclosure, there's gonna be a few in there that were actually, handshakes that I got. But even though I didn't own the bottle, it's I gave it a lot of thought when I compiled my top 10 of 2025, and there was just no way, when I look through everything that I rated very highly, there's no way I could leave them off, even if they were just handshakes. So there you have it. Whiskey Phoenix's honorable mentions for 2025. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did I make a huge mistake by leaving the Jack Daniel's 12-year out of my top 10? I can take the constructive criticism. I've got thick skin after all. As always, if you are drinking on this Sunday fun day, please drink responsibly. And remember, stay sharp, stay burning, rise again, and I'll see you in the next one.